Kevin, you hit a crossroads in your career when you were in the G League, and then you had to basically determine for yourself or decide for yourself if you're going to keep on going for the G League, keep on going for the NBA dream, or go overseas. So in one of the pages on page 43, you said, "Indulge me if you will. Imagine being an NBA rookie. You are told how amazing you are throughout your life. You are a superstar at a high-end Division I university where you're given everything you need before declaring for the draft." And then you go on to say, eventually you practice in an elementary school gym, which are used for PTA meetings the night before. So this is kind of like the other side of overseas basketball. So there's the high-end markets such as Korea and Australia where you played in, but then there's also this side where when you were starting out in the G League, you weren't making a lot of money. You were really struggling to get by, and you're very open about that in your book. So I'm wondering, what eventually made you turn and be like, yo, I've got to start making money? There was eventually like that point in your career, and what kind of like turned your opinion on that?
That was just crazy to me. I'm like, you just were playing in front of NBA scouts. You're like, working out for NBA teams. And then you come home and you're living in the attic of your mom's house. And it's like, what in the world? It just became like I always said you had the label. You just didn't have the extras. So the label was great. And people were like, you're doing great work and this and that. But then I was making $12,000 a year. And that's like before taxes. So I was really making not much money. And you were just kind of like, it was great. And my insurance, I had great NBA insurance. I was able to do things, but there was just no money. And I was just like, I need something else. I was close, and I went to Poland, and the money dried up there. I was like, that was the question I asked. I was like, maybe this isn't the thing. Like maybe there isn't any money in basketball unless you're in the NBA. But then I would hear stories like my brother went to France and he was making, $5 a month, and he was just like, yeah, he was in Pro B and Malus, and he was just like, yeah, you can play here. Like you can 100% play here. And I went over to France and played at his practice and like dominated the practice. And I'm like, so I was able to finally start making money. And that's when I was like, all right, this is good. Like we're in a good spot right now. But those first few years were tough. I mean, it's great. I always say, like, I would go to the bar and my friends are like, hey, buy a round. And I'm like, dude, you make twice as much as I do. And you're like at an entry level crap job somewhere. I'm like, what do you mean? You buy me around. I'm like, I'm not like a baller status right now. It's just the label. That's all I had. I just had the label.
Did you ever feel ashamed in those like opening kind of years, almost like you were a fraud playing?
It was and it was cool. It was good because I do believe that when I was going through the G League, I was like, this is, this competition is ridiculous. And I'm looking and I'm seeing NBA players and I'm like, this is like, I'm playing against these guys, and I'm playing against guys. There's guys on my team who played at Duke and all these big time universities. I'm like kicking their ass every day at practice. I'm like, well, I'm good enough. Like something's there. So, but yeah, that lack of money it killed you. It just, because at the same time, you're just trying to move on with your life. The good thing was, like you experienced, when you're young and you're in your early 20s, not for nothing, but you don't have any responsibilities. Like you can just go. You can do what you want to do. So in those early 20s, I was just like, screw it. Like I'm just gonna go play. I'm gonna keep this dream alive. I'm gonna keep going, because eventually it will work. And if it doesn't, then I move on. But I'm going to give it everything I got, and I'm going to try. So those times in between the G League and getting that first contract overseas, they were tough, because I was like, I don't know if I'm doing this anymore. Like I can't just sit here and not make money.
Yeah, it definitely takes, especially when you're starting out. Like there's a lot of players who never reach the level. I'd say the vast majority of them will never reach the level that you reached of 6-figure contracts, over 20,000 a month, stuff like that. So it takes a seriously like mentally strong person and someone who really loves the game in order to grind it out at those levels, especially when you're making, like you said, 12,000 a year. I was in a very similar position, except I never actually reached past nowhere near 20,000. My highest, I think, was 4 or 5,000. But even then, like when you're starting out, everyone's saying, "Oh, they're so proud of you. You're a professional player." But it's like, dude, I'm making like less than a Burger King worker, $700 a month. But like no one sees that aspect of it. So I say all that to say you can't let outside opinion like influence you to a certain extent, because if you do, that will eat you up. If you let your parents, what they think, if you let what your friends say about, oh, you should play here, or you're not even making this, or why don't you play in that league, like that stuff will eat you up if you let it get to you.
Yeah, my brother, he kind of stopped early, and he was good, and was in Mulhouse, France, had a good situation. He was one of those weird situations where he played for the same team for multiple years because they were successful. He was doing his job, and he just would come home and then go back to Mulhouse for a few years. So he had a good situation, but he was presented with, I guess my sister-in-law's parents kind of sat him down, and they're like, "Are you just going to do this the rest of your life?" Like he got that talk. Like, hey, you're making 5 a month, but like you could be making more. Are you going to continue doing this? Like, where's the future for our daughter? And I was like, oh shit, like that's pretty intense. I never had that. So everyone in my life was way more supportive and way more understanding that I had this talent and I was going to earn it. My brother had it too, but sometimes those outside forces lay in, and loves a crazy thing. I was like, listen, like I love this game and I love myself. Those are my two things that I really was focused on at that point in my life. So I was more worried about trying to make it and as far as I could and not worry about someone else's happiness.